Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to do it anytime. I'm
So,
very approachable, chat.
so I was wondering, I heard you went vegan. Why did you go vegan? When did you go vegan? And I heard it was just something you're trying out. Like, tell me a little bit, like, what's going on?
So everybody knows that for like the first 3 or 4 months in my stream, I was building up my community, and then I had this cockamamie idea where I was like, I was thinking about changing my diet and my like getting healthier, and I was examining a lot of the moral arguments for veganism, but I was just stuck in the rut of tradition. You know what I mean? Where you live your life a certain way, you're used to the conveniences, and you just continue on with inertia. And interacting with you and especially Nicole brought more vegans into my inner circle. You know what I mean? I've always had like friends and acquaintances who were vegan, but not people that I was this close to, right? So, and one thing about Nicole, and I think this is actually what makes her a unique individual, is she's like not very let's just say she doesn't bullshit you. She confronts you with what your values are and when your behavior is not in concordance with your values. And I oftentimes kind of sat back and thought, am I doing what I think is right or not on this? And so I was kind of convinced, but I still didn't do it. And that's the truth. Which was hypocrisy. So eventually I did this thing where I was like, you know what? I want to try it out and I want to be held accountable. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw up this stupid idea that if I get 1,000 concurrents, I'm going to go vegan first. And then I'll be accountable to myself and like to my viewers, and I can try this out. And so I did. Sorry for the long answer, but
No.
that was my thinking.
No, I really appreciate
So I hit that
it.
number and I did it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's something that I think I've noticed a lot of people say is they will realize that, well, first off, they tend to find out from someone in their lives about veganism. I haven't heard many people say, oh, I was just doing research, though that also happens. And I think that's part of the power of being vegan and talking to the people around you, for sure. But then also, I find it interesting that a lot of people hesitate to go vegan. Why do you think that even though you felt maybe you should go vegan, you hesitated for so long? Like, what kept you from going vegan, you think?
Man, there's so many things. The first thing is like not really being sure that I could do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like not it was just like, okay, if I go vegan, what does that mean? How do I like survive? It was just like a lack of knowledge, right? And so that was an excuse.
Just a crazy SJW
And then I would
monster
kind of latch on to, and this is something
wants to
that I see a
indoctrinate
lot
your
of people
children.
doing, so I'm like very patient with it. I assume after many years of veganism, I'll get less patient, sort of like I'm less patient with right-wingers now. Is after I've like gone through these arguments so many times, when you hear the same shit over and over again, it gets tiring. But the thing that was the main thing, just do I have the skills? I don't have the knowledge? Like, how do I go to the grocery store? What am I giving up? What are the alternatives? And I just kept, it seems pretty socially acceptable to keep doing it, not being vegan. Like, no one's really going to think you're a bad person for not going vegan, right? So that's
Except
the
for
hypocrisy
vegans,
that you...
maybe, if they
Well,
do
right,
say that.
But they won't say it because they'll get pushback. So like, even if
yeah.
I'm convinced, I can keep doing the hypocritical wrong thing because it's acceptable socially.
Yep.
And so you combine that with like not having the knowledge, and it's not really socially sanctioned. I just kept kind of doing it, and that tension kept building up in my mind. Because it became kind of a moral failing, right? And so I was just like, all right, I'm gonna do this thing, because like I don't think anybody actually gave me subs to make me go vegan. Maybe 1 or 2 people. That's the thing about the going vegan thing, is
Sorry.
No problem. I don't think that actually motivated people, but it was something. It was a goal, and I just attached this going vegan to it on my own, and then it was like, okay, now I'm gonna make a promise, and just making that promise made me do it. Even if like nobody was really caring that much if I did it.
No, absolutely. And I think, we need to, like, I have those little ways I trick myself into doing certain things that I don't feel ready to do, but I'm like, I want to do this, or I think it would be good to do this. So I absolutely hear you on that. As you went vegan, what do you think was one of the largest difficulties that you had actually going vegan once you decided you were? So, like, getting that lifestyle moving.
So the one thing about going vegan is you have to be a lot more mindful about what you're eating. And in many ways, I had a standard American diet, aka I was a dumpster, and I just kind of randomly threw whatever into my body.
Yeah, I know how that is.
And didn't think much about it, but now I had to learn this pattern of, okay, look at this thing, try to interpret the ingredients, try to understand what the euphemisms are for animal product, and try your best to like go forward. So that was a difficulty. And the one thing is I am not someone who doesn't like to eat meat or dairy or eggs. I love them.
Mm-hmm.
I like, from a hedonic point of view or a pleasure point of view, I really like a lot of the textures and tastes of like meat and eggs and dairy. Like, and the substitutes are very good. But I went, from time to time, I think like, oh man, I'd really like to try that fancy cheese or whatever. So I guess I was giving that up. So the first thing is, learning a new pattern of behavior of like, frankly, taking care of myself. And secondly, like accepting that I'm going to have to give up some things. So those are the difficulties.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know for me, there's a joke in our community that you're not really vegan until you've cried in the grocery store. Because for me, I also had that difficulty of all the ingredients. Just being I got overwhelmed, but it was more of, I went vegan very quickly. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no help, and I was just like, overwhelmed at the grocery store. So I absolutely hear you on that sort of struggle. That's something I'm going to be trying to get ready to take my community out on a grocery, like just go to the grocery store together and talk about like what I buy and how I like try to do my meals, because I do feel like there is a large barrier regarding not really knowing how veganism looks or what you will eat and what you will be missing. Well,
I would say, okay, so just to push back on my own point, this is something that I say to my community. Going vegan these days is actually not that hard.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
So I was kind of an Epicurean or somebody who likes, or a foodie. So that was already part of like me as a person, is I already liked the finer things as far as like food and drink goes. So, the fact that I like, caviar or duck breast or whatever, I had a little bit of a different standard diet than most people. So yeah, I'm giving something up. But if I'm really honest to myself, that was like a couple time a month indulgence. And just diverting that to a slightly different meal is not that big a deal. And I don't really feel like I'm losing all that much. And if you're someone who, frankly, eats a lot of like prepared meals, you're not giving up much. The difference between low quality, like frozen meat and the meat substitutes is zero as far as like taste.
Yeah, I hear you. I think for me, the difficulty was I didn't cook much, and I hadn't learned how to cook. So all of a sudden, especially being like a broke college kid, I'm going vegan, and it's like, I don't know how to cook, and all of a sudden I have to cook, or I'm gonna go, like, I can't afford this. But I also really wasn't, I was eating like crap in the first place, you know? So I think it was for me, and I do talk about, because I feel frustrated sometimes. I feel like vegans, they say going vegan is easy. I think there are difficulties that we can talk about, and mostly from the perspective of how do we reduce those difficulties and help people through them, especially the difficulties regarding making that jump. Because I think making the jump is a lot harder than living vegan. Living vegan seems really easy to me. But do you have the same experience? Do you feel like living vegan is like pretty easy, or are there difficulties within that?
I mean, there's since I'm such a baby vegan, and I haven't encountered a lot of the stuff that I think will be more of a problem, like, you know, being invited to a barbecue and then going there and realizing 0 items are edible.
Yeah.
Or you know, like when I go out lately, I've been kind of scouting to make sure that places I go, I have some choices for me, right? That's not just like, here, grill some vegetables, haha, vegan, you know. It's something a little bit better than that. And this is something that I don't know if you've been following my stream and Lumi's stream for a while, you'll remember at TwitchCon, this is one of the most embarrassing things that I regret this horribly. And it was something that Lucid Fox and I did that was like so offensive in hindsight and really annoying and embarrassing. But I'm going to talk about it because I think this is a good learning experience for just how to be a nicer person. And we had this like Korean barbecue dinner set up. And basically there was a special DM group set up for it. And we explicitly did not invite like the vegans and vegetarians. Like, we excluded them. And when you know, we were told like, hey, you guys, what do you mean you're going to dinner? You didn't even like include us at all. We kind of laughed it off. And we were like, oh, you can come and just like grill some vegetables on the side. And we were kind of like huge jerks about it. And I think about that now and I was like, oh, oof, that was a really dick move. And in hindsight, like, it's one of those things that I think about from time to time when people talk about veganism, because I had that same kind of assholey attitude where somebody was telling me they have this moral position. And instead of like listening to it because the arguments are strong, I kind of like made them a joke. And so so it was kind of a learning experience for me. And I'm like legitimately sorry about that. And that was one of the times in my life where I was absolutely an asshole. And there's really like two words about it. And so I'm sorry to you and to Nicole that I did that. I don't even know what the question was. I'm sorry, I just rambled. So that was just something I wanted to bring up. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And I think there's something to be said for Nicole's response versus my response. I don't know where Bad Bunny comes from or her experiences growing up. I grew up in a really conservative area, really internalizing the role of a woman. And so to me, my first reaction is going to be to spare your feelings and ignore my own. It is hurtful to get left out. So I saw Bad Bunny feeling really hurt by this, and I understood fully. And I was like, I feel this really horribly, but I would have just been like, oh, you know, haha, that's okay. Whereas Nicole is going to say, this is fucked, and she's going to be upset, and she's going to be like honest about her feelings. And I think that's really important. So while I think there is a place for both of our activism, I think this is an area where people like her having that very clear, very no bullshit, no sugarcoating sort of tactic is really important, because I would have just gotten completely, like, I wouldn't have even brought it up. right?
I mean, like, in her defense, I don't even think she really like. She wasn't like abrasive or anything about it. You know, she was just like, "Wow, you guys really hurt my feelings."
No. I didn't
You
think
know,
she was necessarily abrasive. I think she's just clear. Whereas
yeah,
for
no,
me,
exactly.
I'm
She
gonna
expressed
like
it.
gloss it over, right? Because to me, and this is again, I think a lot of internalized sexism in some ways. To me, I'm like, oh, I'm overreacting. I'm overreacting. And the thing is, a lot of people are going to validate that and say, yeah, oh my gosh, you're vegan. You are overreacting. Like, why are you so emotional? You know? So I think I agree. I don't think she was necessarily abrasive, but I was aware that she was upset. And I think that was important. So I really value people like Nicole who will be honest in that way, where sometimes I'm just like, well, that sucks, you know. So,
Well, right. Well, yeah, and this is one of the things that I think people need to do more of, which is express your feelings of like hurt to people that you care about and hopefully care about you in return. And because like honestly, I didn't even think that I was being a dick
yeah,
until she told me. And then when I got her perspective, I was like, damn, like yikes, that was really mean of me. That was really like heartless and thoughtless. And I was like, wow. So I actually appreciated it. And I agree with you 100% that this is a gender norms thing where
yeah,
like men are much more comfortable expressing their displeasure and discomfort, and women are given this role of people who are femme perceived are given the role of like smoothing things over and doing emotional labor and maintenance on everybody else and making sure everyone's happy. And if you don't do that, then you are kind of stepping outside of the gender norm, or you're being a bitch, or you're being demanding or high maintenance or whatever the terms are.
yeah,
Um, so
absolutely.
so yeah, that was important. That was an important probable step on the path that got me down to veganism myself, was like, oh, yeah, I was being a thoughtless jerk. Which which I do
Fair
from
enough,
time to
fair enough.
time. I don't know
Yeah,
if you
we all
noticed this.
do. We all do. It
I do it a
happens.
little bit more than most people.
Well, I'm
Gets me in
grateful that
trouble.
you are willing to self-reflect. So thank you for doing that.
No, well.
I wanted to go into like how has this really affected your life? I'm always curious about
Oh
this.
God.
How has
Tremendously. Well, yeah, go finish your question.
Yeah, I'm just how has being vegan affected your life, if at all?
Well, like, since I started streaming and making this changes, I have lost so much weight. It's like crazy. Um, I don't know if you're looking at me on screen. If you watched me when I first came on stream, uh, I was like 30 pounds more heavy when I first started streaming. So I've lost a shit ton of weight. And it you look a lot slimmer, especially the face. Yeah, that's exactly right. I lost a lot. I lost a lot of weight. So just from a health perspective, it's really improved that. Um, and so if you're just selfish and you've got a couple extra pounds, getting rid of like meat and fat and like being
Cheese.
more thoughtful about what you eat. That's the
Yeah,
other thing.
yeah.
It's not just that it's like I'm becoming an aesthetic who doesn't eat anything pleasurable. It's more like I'm now thinking about what I eat every time I eat something. So I don't just mindlessly snack on things anymore. Like every time I pick something up, I look at it and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And I'm confronting the calories, the serving size. I am thinking about like my diet in a more responsible way. And so that makes me healthier. I think that's the biggest effect on my life.
Yeah, I felt that as well. I lost a lot of weight when I went vegan too. And I also think it was partially, yeah, I think that like you're confronting what you're eating, but also all of a sudden, like I couldn't go out and survive on a burger from the dollar menu anymore, or just like eat that same really kind of unfortunate food. I absolutely can. Now we've got the Impossible
Burger. Yeah. Let me tell you. So one day, I was streaming. This is a quick story. And I went to like a Grubhub or something, and I was like looking for vegan food, and then I clicked on Qdoba, and I was like, I'm gonna just get like a bean burrito with no meat, and that was one of the first times when I was like, ugh, this sucks. I miss having a steak. And then I saw that they had an Impossible meat option, and I was like, huh? And so I got 2 huge Qdoba burritos jammed with stuff, with the Impossible meat. And so it was like, oh, I'm literally losing nothing right now by going vegan. It's $1.50 more. And I'm not killing animals. This is great.
Yeah.
So it's so much easier, even in fast food, than it was even, say, 5 years ago.
Yeah, it is. It has been blowing my mind, like going into the grocery store, and I'm like, I wonder if there will be oat milk there. And I remember going in and just being able to get like soy milk, and all of a sudden I look and it's just like oat milk and rice milk and like in Kroger, you know, like all of these different types of replacements. And I'm like, fuck yeah, this is fantastic. So I'm really glad it's gotten easier and more accessible. I think it's not super accessible to everyone just yet. But
it's a little bit more expensive to buy some of these items than it is like to buy the cheapest because they're subsidized. Whereas the vegan stuff isn't subsidized. Like meat and dairy gets a ton of money from the government. And so that keeps prices artificially low, but oat milk doesn't.
Yeah. Also, I noted someone said, ew, oat milk, which you're entitled to your own, like, preferences, absolutely. But first off, oat milk is bomb. Second off, something that's been really incredible for me recently is, this is like 4 or 5 years into being vegan, but I've had people saying, well, going vegan isn't necessarily more environmentally friendly because you can do all of these like bad things with your veganism, right?
What?
Like the leather.
Bad take.
I agree to some level. It's a bad take. I agree. There are some things you can critique, like very specific things, but then you look at the milks and people will go after milks, and it's like, I believe it's even the worst milk regarding water and energy consumption.
Which I think is oat milk.
No, oat milk and soy milk are 2 of the better ones environmentally.
What's the worst?
From what I know so far, it really depends on the factors you're looking at, because almonds are a huge concern because of bees and the shipping of bees around to pollinate them. And then some other ones are really bad because of the areas that they grow in and the demand going up that causes clear cutting. So it really depends. And then some of them, I think it's maybe rice milk, has a lot of water that goes into it. But going vegan has been helpful.
That's like 5% of the water of cows. Like what?
Yeah. So even the worst ones are better than cow milk. But having this be mentioned, I've gotten an interest in being more environmentally friendly. And so I've went to oat milks and soy milk. Soy milk I recommend more because it's cheaper and there's more protein. But both of those are more environmentally friendly, and that's been something I've enjoyed about going vegan and hearing the critiques of veganism, even though if they're like, I don't feel like that's a heavily, overall, I feel like that's not a great critique for the movement as a whole, but it's inspired me to be more environmentally friendly with my veganism. Have you considered any other, I want to say almost ethical issues around your food other than just veganism? Like fair trade, I'm sure might be something. Like you're probably quite concerned with workers' rights, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that's great is a lot of vegan products are also like much more socially conscious, period. So like I know we all say there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, and to a large degree that's right. I mean, like the idea that consumers are going to be the one to make effective change in the market is a delusional comment that people make so that they can avoid regulation. Like they go, well, if people really valued X thing, they would spend their money in a different way. And they say that because they know consumers are very much constrained by the money in their wallet, and they're going to go for lower prices because, we're poor. So they're actually just trying to avoid like regulations and attention for the bad behavior. But the cool thing about vegan products is a lot of them tend to be fair trade. A lot of them tend to be no non-GMO. They tend to be focused on better practices and more sustainable practices, period. So it's been kind of virtuous cycle where when you go vegan and you're more compassionate towards animals, you also are more compassionate to human beings in the production chain. And one of the thing that leftists, a lot of leftists who aren't vegan get very antsy when you talk about this. And one of the things is workers in the meat agricultural industry is some of the most dangerous work, period.
Yeah.
So like slaughterhouses cause psychological harm and physical harm because you're around sharp bladed things designed to slice into flesh. That means sometimes they miss and they hit people. The crabbing and fishing industry is extremely dangerous. It's usually like the most dangerous job or the second most dangerous job, period. Like thousands of people die getting you your crab legs. So
I wasn't familiar with that.
Yeah. Wow. It's even more dangerous than like soldiers, military. I think it tends to be not the most dangerous job. And so when you buy those products, you're actually harming people. And so all of that is virtuous and brings things together. And the great thing is because like chocolate, for example, milk chocolate has milk in it. So I don't eat milk chocolate anymore, which tends to mean that I'm buying dark chocolates, and dark chocolates tend to be fair trade, higher quality. And so I am doing praxis both in not harming animals, which I value, and also spending my money on socially aware companies that for the marginal benefit that provides.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I actually wanted to ask you how veganism plays into your leftism almost, because for me it definitely plays into social justice related issues, and just not only the workers' rights aspect regarding the psychological traumas and everything, but also the minorities that tend to be working these jobs. They tend to be people who in low income areas, also minorities from a race perspective. And even in Canada, they were trying to get what's the word I'm looking for here? People who were coming over to the country, not immigrants, but
migrant workers?
Not migrant workers. They were coming because of
temporary guests, or
I believe it was refugees, Syrian refugees. They were trying to encourage refugees to get into this work because no one in Canada wanted to do it. And so they're putting refugees in these dangerous jobs, or trying to encourage them to. And it's just holy shit.
All right, first of all, I'm going to bust that myth. This is the most this is a pernicious myth that even leftists say, which is like immigrants, they do jobs that Americans don't want to do. And what people are really saying is these are desperate people that we can take advantage of. Americans work all sorts of dangerous jobs. The reason that people don't want to, quote, work these jobs is they pay like garbage. Yeah. And they're unsafe.
Yes.
Migrant workers should be paid a living wage, just like every other worker. And if that means that like people are not spending as much money on meat because it triples in price, that's probably a good thing. If we actually capture the damage that's being done to the environment from methane emissions from dairy and cattle farming, and the prices go up and people decide to eat less meat because of it, that would be a good thing. Yeah. All those things. So like, I think refugees should be brought here. I played a video in the beginning called "No Human is Illegal." I'm not saying that we shouldn't have an open door policy for immigration. But what I am saying is I kind of hate the idea that there's something essential about Westerners where they don't want to get their hands dirty. That just, and these migrants do. And so it's okay
Yeah.
that they work these shitty jobs for low pay. No, they're just exploited.
Yeah, no, I heavily agree with that because I see it like you're encouraging literal refugees, or you're encouraging people who are trying to come here for a better life. You're like, oh, well, they'll just fill these jobs that literally no one wants, that are super dangerous, and you're not paying enough for. If you can't keep your people in there, your workers in there, and you're having such an intense turnover rate that you're turning to refugees, maybe you need to reconsider the job. Like, what do you need to do? Do you need to pay more? Do you need to, like, what is happening there? Something is clearly wrong. It's so frustrating. I absolutely hear you there.
And one of the, some of the people in my chat have been bringing up like buying local produce. And that's one of the great movements is that, again, like vegetarian and veganism often overlaps with the eat local movement. And, I have a farmer's market that I go to, once a week and buy local produce. And and more of my diet is becoming in sync with the natural seasons. Here I live in Pennsylvania, so there's very much like produce that's locally available changes over the course of the year. It's not like I live in Southern California where you can get everything all year round, right? Because it's mild. And so so it's changing the composition of my diet by me taking advantage of that. And then, I'm avoiding the carbon impacts of large transportation chains and logistic chains. I'm not saying that I don't take advantage of some of the like more processed vegan products, like the cheese alternatives and the yogurt alternatives I really like, and occasionally some of the meat ones as well. But I have actually spent more time at the farmer's market eating locally. So even if you want to measure my carbon impact of my diet objectively, it's probably 10% of what it was 3 months ago. So there's really no argument from like an environmental point of view that veganism is like, and I think that there's the one thing that frustrates me is a lot of people say that if some harm still exists, it's not worth the effort.
Yeah, that's so absurd.
Like vegans still do this, that ignores this problem. So therefore they're not doing anything better than me. And it's like, actually, no, dude, like if we are reducing harm, reduction of harm is in and of itself a good thing to go after. And there is a difference between someone who does more harm knowingly and those that do less harm. And even if that less harm is 50% and not 100%, it's still 50%. And we should all be striving for that.
Absolutely. And we see this in a lot of like anti-progress arguments. I feel like, I don't know, as a feminist, I know whenever I talk about rape, the issue of rape, people are just like, well, you're never entirely going to get rid of rape. And I'm like, are you right now trying to advocate me not try to reduce rape? Like, are you okay? What is happening here? It's a very frustrating argument that just seems like it's preventing progress. But do you feel like workers' rights and your less environmental impact, are there any other areas? Those are two really cool areas, but are there any other areas you feel like veganism fits into your ideas as a leftist or reinforces those, or do those seem to be the main ones?
Yeah. So I think it's part of a larger kind of empathetic worldview, right? Where you value other sentient beings as having worth outside of yourself. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, and maybe this is defensive, but like pigs are not the same level of, sentience as human beings, but they have experiences and memories and they have, creatures that they get close to. And, like a pig is just as smart as your dog, right? And a lot of us build these connections and relationships with our companion animals, and then we go and kill and exploit animals who our society has just deemed exploitable in a way that we would never do it to our companions and our friends. And so I think part of leftism and what veganism reinforces is kind of this larger circle of compassion and empathy than just yourself and your closest relatives or whatever, or friends. It gets you looking in a truly global sense. And right now, that's the kind of thinking we need more than ever, because so many people are being dehumanized. The world is facing ecological catastrophe, which affects not just humans, but all species on this planet. And so veganism and the movement is part of a larger tapestry of consciousness raising, where we take people from thinking about their own interests and then expanding the circle to the interest of others. And in a kind of paradoxical way, it helps you too. By expanding your compassion and empathy to more people, you end up living in a juster society and you directly benefit. So like, by being selfish, you end up more unhappy than if you're compassionate.
That was beautifully said. I know Bad
thank
Bunny's
you.
in your chat disagreeing with some points, but
On what?
but generally beautifully said.
Oh, the pig is far smarter than your dog. Oh, I mean, yeah, sure. I know. I mean, like, people tend to not agree with that. So I'm just trying to. I don't know. Come on.
Yeah, no, I caught you. I got you. Yeah, I do.
Well, when I'm doing my monologue, when I monologue, I don't read chat.
No, that's
I just
that's
glaze over it.
totally
I'm thinking about what I'm saying
No,
and I'm
you're
not
good.
reading chat.
No, you're fine. So yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And that's where I am at too, that we're just living a more compassionate lifestyle overall. And I think it's sometimes I feel uncomfortable articulating that, even though I really firmly believe that, because it feels like so many people want to take the emotions in here, that being compassion and empathy, they want to take it out of politics, which to me feels absurd. Politics are trying to are forming so many aspects of our lives. We can't separate that from our personal lives. The personal is political, if you will. And so it just seems a very sad place to be, where you remove the emotion from politics and the realities of politics and how they shape our very personal lives in very many ways. But
yeah,
I don't know if you wanted to comment on that. You can go for it.
No, I think we're of the same mind. Of sometimes I hear people talk about like egoism, or like or even solipsism, where like their concerns and desires and needs are, they think, philosophically the most important thing. And paradoxically, you are almost certainly not in the ruling class. Even if you make good money, say you make $300,000 a year from streaming, which would put you at one of the top streamers, you're not actually part of the ruling class. You're a worker still. You're dependent upon all these structures that have power over you. Tomorrow they could ban you. Jeff Bezos could come on this platform and ban your ass off of it, and your income will go from 300,000 to 50. So you are still on this side of the battle, so to speak. And even if you have achieved a certain level of like labor aristocracy, where you live a comfortable, secure life, being so concerned with your own advancement is probably going to lead to you being more unhappy in the long run. It's good. You may make 300,000, but you might have a friend who also streams who makes 36,000, and they can't afford to pay rent and food and taxes and health insurance. So when you oppose, say, Medicare for all, and your friend over there is negative $74 a month, that's going to hurt your well-being. You're going to look and see your friend struggling to survive, and you're going to be, hopefully that will affect you, right? Them being in pain will affect you. Now, so even if you're very selfish, you would still want to support a more compassionate society.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that argument before. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really interesting perspective. I wanted to go into, have you found like a favorite vegan food yet?
Favorite vegan food? Phew. I don't know if I have a favorite vegan food yet. I don't know. I really, I'm not so much. I'm trying to
Throw
think of
out
your answer.
a few things you enjoy.
Oh,
Do you just hate all vegan food? No, I'm kidding.
no, hell no, hell no. No, not at all. To be honest, I really, really like nuts. I know it's a thing that's probably everyone's gonna laugh. LL might
I
likes
was
nuts,
giggling.
but so it's been really great to like enjoy eating more like pistachios and more almonds and stuff. I just really like I'm I'm reading your comments, Bunny. Calm down. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I found myself really enjoying like tofu, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm learning how to cook tofu in a lot of different ways now, and I'm just it makes me sad. A lot of people are like, I don't like tofu. And I'm like, have you tried it like 20 different ways? Because I'm sure there's one way you like. Tofu's incredible.
Yeah, I love to throw it into like stir fries, and I made vegan chili where I threw in some tofu.
Yes. How did you cook your tofu for vegan chili? I've been wondering
I think
about
I did the thing where I pressed it and then I froze it. You know that freezing unfreeze
I haven't
technique?
Tried that yet. I haven't.
Yeah, it really changed the texture in quite a really interesting way. So I recommend people give that a shot.
Okay.
And I really like miso. I really like some of the fermented beans and things like that, which really add a nice umami forward flavor. Sauerkrauts, things where you get these different like acid. I don't know how much you are into food, but like yeah. So I've been trying to cycle through all that things, and frankly, I've been taking advantage of all the like substitutes. There was this really good shredded cheese substitute. God, what was the brand? It was like Mexican shredded cheese, basically, like to simulate a Mexican cheese.
Huh.
And when I made nachos with it, it was literally the best nachos I've had in years. It was so good. It might have been Daya. I think it was a different one, but it was so good. So I've been really enjoying it and not really feeling like I'm missing out that much. Like sometimes when I was driving recently, I was driving home, pulled into Burger King, got an Impossible Whopper, fries, and I was like, what did I give up? Absolutely nothing. I even still have the fast food at Burger King route open to me.
Yeah, so. I think the fast food that the addition of the Impossible Whopper, I'm like, I'm missing nothing now. Well, yeah, I'm like, that is so nice for sure. I absolutely hear you on that one. I'm glad you found a lot of things you liked. I know I struggled initially, but finding Sour Patch Kids also was a huge deal to me. So.
Oh hell yeah! Well, I've been a Sour Patch fan for a long time.
I guess I'm still trying to figure out a kind of replacement for M&Ms because I miss M&Ms a lot.
Oh, there are vegan M&Ms, I think. I'm pretty sure there are.
I almost wonder if I can make them cheaper than
Do you like milk chocolate?
I'm sorry?
Do you like milk chocolate?
Okay, so I'm going to admit something here. So I used to love milk chocolate, and then I went vegan, and I was vegan. I don't know how far into being vegan I was, but it wasn't too long. And I was like craving, I couldn't find good vegan chocolate, and it was a problem. And not only that, but I was like in college, and it was hard to even be able to afford to buy and try new types of chocolate and stuff. And I broke down and I bought, everyone's probably going to be like, Lumi, this doesn't count. But I bought one of those Reese's eggs around Easter. I don't know if you have, you're not in the States, are you? You are in the States. Do you know what I'm talking about? They're like they're like Reese's Easter egg things.
Yeah, of course. Like they're Cadbury cream eggs.
I'm not sure, but I grabbed them. I grabbed one and I took a bite on my way out, and I was just like horrified. Like, it was so disgusting. And I'm like, maybe this is just because I haven't had like really nasty chocolate in a while, because I don't think that's like the highest quality chocolate. But I was just like so many levels of horrified and everything. So I don't know if I like milk chocolate. I don't know if it's like after eating dark chocolate for a while that I'm just disgusted. I don't know what happened there. But generally speaking, I used to like milk chocolate, and now I'm not sure. So
Yeah. So I was just looking up, and I think there is a brand called Unreal.
I have had these and they're incredible. The problem is they're so expensive. So I'm going to see if I can.
Oh yeah, they
They're
are.
so expensive.
$30.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's rough. So I think I'm going to see if I can.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's no
Make
reason extra cost that
them?
much.
I
There's
don't
no
know.
reason extra cost that much. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Those
but-
aren't well, of course they're not literally M&Ms, but they're candy covered chocolates
Yeah. Yeah.
in a spheroid shape. Like, relax.
That's
Doesn't
the
have to- we don't
closest
get the
I've been
ex-
able
that's-
to find.
We don't need to get the exact. Does anybody care about the stamp that says M&M on it? Who gives a shit? We're talking about a specific type of candy. It's like saying, I can't find a Kleenex, and there's like a tissue right there, like a box of tissues, and go, I can't find any Kleenexes, and they're right there. That's not a Kleenex. Those are tissues, idiot. Bad Bunny.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Fucking
those
Bad
are
Bunny.
the closest I found, and they're actually incredible. I've had them. I love them. It's just holy.
I get their
fuck, they're
peanut butter
expensive.
cups. I get their peanut butter cups. So
Yeah, those are really good too. Have you been happy with them?
yeah. I mean, I don't like milk chocolate. I actually kind of avoid it.
Oh,
So like prior to going vegan, so I don't really feel like I like dark chocolate a lot. I just
mhm.
I don't know, something about being a Pennsylvanian and having a Hershey, because Hershey is Hershey, Pennsylvania, and having Hershey's jammed on you, low quality milk chocolate your entire life is, I've had enough, So
I gotcha.
unless it's really good, I've always avoided it. So again, I don't feel like I'm losing out. But if you really love milk chocolate, also there's like there's a local bakery next to me, which is like one of the best vegan bakeries in like the country. So whenever I want kind of a chocolatey treat or whatever, or baked good, I can go there and get like really high quality baked good. That is the one issue, is like going into the supermarket for baked goods, pretty much not a thing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like pastries and things. Like, you're gonna have to make a special trip for that.
Yeah, for sure. That's something I noticed with my housemate. I had vegan housemates for a while, and they were kind of going vegan. Well, they were essentially vegan, and occasionally we would go grocery shopping sometimes, and I remember him like holding the pies up and looking for vegan pies, and then just setting them back down and walking away, and I'm like, I gotta make him a pie. I feel so sad for you.
Yeah, I know.
that's
You can't just go
probably
into the supermarket and grab a pie anymore,
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But I think for me, that's been kind of cool. It's pushed me to cook more and try making them, which can sometimes be a disaster, but a lot of times it's really fun. So that's something I've enjoyed a lot.
It's not that big a deal. Veganism.
Yeah.
Okay, someone in my chat just said veganism is self-inflicted torture.
It's really not. It's really not.
I wish I have this like secret tanky streak in me, this authoritarian impulse, which I always try to push down.
No,
which
I
is,
was just arguing with my chat. I don't think you're a tanky. Don't say that while you're on my
No,
stream.
I'm kidding. This is kind of a joke. I'm carrying the meme forward. But like, so when someone says something like, "Oh man, I eat so much great meat products," I'm like, all right, I want that person to be required to do a diary of everything they ate for the month, so I can really look over all the times they had the high quality steak, and when it wasn't just like I had nuggets, I had some Taco Bell, Like, give me
Listen,
a break with what you're giving up.
nuggets are so important, but I also agree
There
with
are
you.
vegan nuggets, but like, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you would go vegan and you got the vegan nuggets instead of the like
True.
shitty Cargill. And Cargill, by the way, if you're a meat eater, is one of the worst companies in the world.
What is?
Cargill. It's like it's in Minnesota. So if you're in the presidential, if you care about the Democratic presidential primary, Amy Klobuchar is like one of the biggest supporters of Cargill, and they're like one of the most evil agribusiness, animal torturing, disgusting pink slime corporations that exist.
What does pink
Poisoning
slime mean?
Oh wow, okay. Pink slime is this for everybody in the chat who doesn't know, and thanks for asking the question. It is basically if you take like pigs and chicken carcasses after they cut all the like usable meat out of it, there's still a little bit of connective tissue and nerve tissue and like, various parts that are still connected to the skeleton. And pink slime is they take the skeletons and they shake them like super, super fast. Hundreds of thousands of vibrations a second to shake off all this connective tissue and like low quality things that are still connecting to the skeleton. And then they have this lump of like actually really gross, inedible product at the end. And then they mix that with some ammonia and some like antibiotics, and they kind of grind it up. And when they shoot it out a tube, and when it comes out, it looks bright pink, almost like taffy.
What the fuck?
It's called pink slime. It's like the lowest quality meat that exists. And so, and it tends to have like a lot more bacteria, viruses. It's very like bad for you. And so they use that in a lot of like the very cheapest like pizza rolls, or like sometimes those pre-made hamburgers that you get, or like chicken nuggets, like the low quality chicken nuggets. They're all made out of this like pink slime stuff, which is really, really bad for you. And so that's what I was referring to is mechanically separate. So if you look at your food, if you're not going to go vegan, but at least you're going to start looking at your ingredients, you'll want to avoid mechanically separated meat. That's like just filth.
Yeah, that sounds horrible. That sounds so horrible. Oh, gross. Well, thank you for enlightening me on that. Ew.
Yeah. I mean, you're already vegan, so you're already not eating it.
But... Yeah, I just hear these things and I sit, and the only way I can sit through it is be like, this is why I'm vegan, and I feel a little okay now. I don't have to deal with this problem.
Well, like, yeah, this is the one thing that people, when a vegan talks to people that are not vegan yet, and that's how I look at them, and they start talking about the agricultural industry, like that really pisses people off.
What do you mean?
Like they don't like hearing the truth about it.
Oh yeah. I pick on my mom specifically regarding dairy milk and the pus that can be in it, and she gets super upset. It's actually one of my favorite things because she's like, "Stop it!" And I'm like, "I'm sorry. You've picked on me for my whole life."
Or the hormones, or like the thing about dairy cows is, we all know they have something called a rape rack.
Oh, yeah.
So they forcibly impregnate these cows in what the industry calls a rape rack. And then when they have their calf, the calves are taken, and they're put into veal crates. And veal crates are tiny enclosures where basically the calf can't move because they're trying to keep the meat as tender as possible. And when you exercise, that gives you stronger muscles, aka tougher muscles. And then the cows are milked. And the thing is, in most dairies, they want to increase production as much as possible. So they give them something called bovine recombinant growth hormone. And so they inject them through antibiotics. They inject them full of these hormones. And so they can produce as much milk as the cow can possibly physically produce. And the thing is, when you inject hormones into a lactating animal, a lot of hormones and antibodies and T cells of the immune system comes through the milk, because milk is intended for infant animals who don't have those, an endocrine system and an immune system that's fully developed. And so you get those hormones and those antibodies, and as you say, pus from the milk when you drink it. So if you're a dude, when you drink milk, you're getting a lot of estrogen, and not plant estrogens, not phytoestrogens, actual estrogen. So it can, and we believe that the increased consumption of milk products in our society has led to precocious puberty in girls, like the development of like larger breast tissue and other things like that, and correspondingly problems in men, cis men, in their endocrine development because of consuming dairy. So like healthfully, it's probably bad for us in really unknown ways, not just consuming milk, but the amount of milk and dairy we consume and what's being done to the cows in the process. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, this is one of those things where people will really get annoyed and object to this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Milk is just, oh my gosh, going into it, there are so many issues people don't realize and are horrified by and don't want to hear, but here we are. I did want to move into what is something you didn't expect or that went differently than you expected once going vegan? Because I know I expected to miss out on a whole bunch of foods when it was only like one or two that I can slowly find replacements for.
All right, so this is going to be probably a surprising take, because vegans like to have the idea that I'm doing something difficult, hard. And this is something I told Nicole after I was vegan for like 2 or 3 weeks. I was like, my biggest fear was I was going to go vegan and realize how fucking easy it was and how little I was giving up. And I was going to have to confront the fact that I was just a piece of shit. And I'm just memeing Nicole about vegans are going to like to hear this. And this is something that I think vegans should be more confident in saying is, in this day and age, it's not that hard. It was a lot easier than I thought. And if I have a craving for something, usually I can find a pretty on the nose alternative that tastes good. And so like, I think the thing that I would say is it was way easier than I thought. And so if you're like kind of weighing whether you want to try veganism or not, you worry that it might be difficult. I don't not at least in my experience.
Yeah, I think some people will have different barriers to going vegan. I know for me, it was a lot of relearning or like just learning in general. But I think there can be a lot of different things that cause it to be more difficult for others than it is for some. Because I lived in a household that had the money for replacements and stuff, right? After I went vegan as a really freaking broke college kid that still didn't even know how to cook, right? So I think there can be an extra level of energy that goes into it. But I agree with you. I want to say, like, I overwhelmingly agree with you that it is far easier than most people realize. They think it's going to be this huge, daunting task. So if you do have that fear, just have vegan meals for a while. If you are learning how to cook and learning how to cook on top of changing your whole diet and relearning how to build a meal, if that's a concern of yours, then just go slowly and learn piece by piece. Because I do think in certain circumstances, it can be more difficult, but overwhelmingly, yeah, I had that same experience that I thought it was going to be so much work. And even with the level of work I did have going into it, it wasn't nearly as hard as everyone thinks it's going to be.
Oh, for sure. And the other thing I would point out is like somebody in my chat said, I really love cheese pizza and I had a hard time to give up. Let me tell you something. You could have cheese pizza. That's just as good.
Yeah.
There are mozzarella substitutes that hit it pretty much 95% bang on. And if you have some fresh basil on there, a nice marinara, a good vegan crust, like you could have cheese pizza. It's not like you're not giving that up. It doesn't go away. If you're a pizza addict, you're not giving up anything. And in fact, you'll probably have better pizzas, less Papa John's and shit like that, and more like artisanal Napoli style pizza. Like what? Like come on, come on.
Have we figured out vegan sushi yet? I love what
Oh,
is
you're
it?
hitting my one weakness. The
Oshinko
one thing I
rolls.
miss.
Oshinko rolls are super. I got to try an Oshinko roll after going vegan. It introduced me to that, and oh my gosh, I live for them. But I do know that, I don't know, Mike, have you tried vegan sushi yet?
No.
Oh
So
my
okay,
gosh.
here's the other thing that I want to say, and I would love the vegans to react to this comment because this is something that I've been thinking, and it takes the pressure of like missing things off of me. And it's like, if I slip up and I accidentally eat some animal products because I miss something in the ingredient list, or I get really tempted and I have some, I'm not suddenly a bad human being non-vegan. I'm somebody who did something impulsively that I don't agree with, but like if I in the future I'm more careful, it's not a huge deal. I'm
Mhm.
not going to judge myself. I give it my best shot and sometimes I miss. Like recently I had a cookie and I didn't check the ingredients, and of course it had egg white in it. And I was like, fuck. That was the first time that I knowingly, in hindsight, realized that I ate some animal products that I didn't mean to. And did I suddenly stop being vegan? Did I break down and cry? I was like, no, okay. You know what? Be a little bit more careful around cookies in the future. And so it's not like this, you slip up once, your vegan card gets forever revoked. What's the point? It's like, you know what? I'm going to treat this as a moral decision. I'm going to give it my best shot. If I make mistakes, I'm human. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, all or nothing thinking is really damaging in nearly any aspect of your life, right? I know my mom, she's like, I'm going to work out. I'm going to work out daily. I want to be healthier. And then she'll miss one day and she's just like, what's the point? And it's absurd. It keeps you from doing better and actually reaching your goals. You end up just thinking you can't do it. It's just an additional barrier that's really absurd, and absolutely the same with veganism. You're doing so much better. You have reduced so much, and yet you're so scared of this. Almost, it's like an intense level of vegan purity or something. And I notice like non-vegans often trying to attack vegans by saying, oh, well, do you do this? Well, do you do this? Or
Right.
did you know that this isn't vegan and therefore like it's not possible to live completely vegan? And I'm just like, this is absurd. This is absurd. It's just so frustrating.
There is no vegan police, right? And so, if that concerns you, like, oh, I'm gonna slip up, okay. If you maybe you slip up once a month, that's different than every single meal being centered around a meat product, and I'm very much someone who's focused on harm reduction and consequences. So if people start making this choice and then occasionally they screw up or get tempted and do the thing, that's still 100 times better than just going, well, if I screw up, I'm not vegan anymore. No, you aren't. And like, also, if people want to modify veganism, I want to go ahead. If you think, Mike, I'm buying into veganism, but I think honey's fine, do it. I disagree with you, but cool. Like, cut out everything but honey, cool. Like, you think eating insects or whatever is fine, go for it. Like, that to me is a good step. And I'm willing to like compromise on these things to get people thinking in a different way, because we have to reduce our agricultural CO2. There is no alternative. We need people to be pivoting to vegetarian and vegan diets right away.
Yeah, I'm here for that. I'm absolutely here for that. I do hesitate for people who their end goal is to go vegan. I hesitate saying going vegetarian first is a good step because of a few reasons. I've noticed that a lot of
No.
people. Well, I hesitate because
I agree
when I
with you,
did that,
actually.
yeah, I added in a lot more dairy products and didn't really like. I just added
Exactly.
more dairy products, which are a lot more harmful in a lot of ways than meat can be, and a lot of people don't realize that. And so it's like, and then also people tend to get stuck on that step. But
I wouldn't recommend going vegetarian.
I'm sorry?
Because then I would recommend going vegetarian because then you'll just crutch all the
Yeah.
meat becomes dairy products. Like, oh man,
Yeah.
I was gonna have this bologna sandwich and now I just doubled the cheese in.
Yeah,
Like
basically.
that's not changing your diet.
Yeah, so it's like I always say, add in vegan meals, take out things slowly, and maybe a meat product, then a cheese or dairy product or whatever. But that's something I get a little bit like, oh, that's. But still, I wouldn't like if someone's like, I'm gonna do this and do this. I'd say, well, I wouldn't recommend that. Here's why, but I'm still gonna support you.
All right, so this is gonna be a cringe Mike situation, but someone asked me directly, Mike, has your sex drive improved as a vegan? Now I'm not gonna directly answer your question, but I'll say this: that I don't know if it's the vegan diet or like making sure that I'm much more cognizant of like my vitamins, minerals, my macro balance, like protein, being more healthful. Period. But I have a lot more energy and I feel a lot more motivated in all aspects of life. So like losing a lot of weight, maybe what's causing that. Maybe it's vegan diet. I don't know. But I feel a hell of a lot better in all aspects of my life now than I did 6 months.
Yeah.
Here we go. Coomer Mike, vegan Coomer.
I know that my energy levels and working out, and just being more in touch with my body in general, like paying attention. Again, you hit on paying attention to your food and what's going into your body. I think there's a lot more, as I was saying, almost connection to your body and awareness and focus on your health. That's really powerful, in my opinion. So I definitely hear you on that one.
Les, I was vegan for a year and just gained a ton of weight and was not having fun with eating, so I just went back. You gained, I mean, all right. I mean,
Did
I
you
don't
eat
know.
a lot of
I don't know.
pasta? I know
Like,
a lot of people, specifically my mom's boyfriend was like, oh, you're going to gain a lot of weight. My daughter went vegetarian, only ate pasta and gained a ton of weight. And I'm like, wait. You're telling me someone only ate pasta and gained weight?
I barely have eaten any pasta. Barely.
Like,
Like, to be honest, I barely have eaten pasta. I've eaten like way more like stir fries and things like that. I've eaten like 1 or 2 times. See, I don't really like. So again, I'm a snob. So I don't like to take a box out, put it in boiling water, and then dump a thing of sauce on it. It's just that's not me. So I don't eat like that. So I mean, if you do, then no hate, but I don't know. I can't imagine gaining weight. I can't imagine gaining weight going vegan. But everyone has their own experiences that are valid. So I don't know. I don't know what happened.
yeah, for sure. But I'm just always, whenever someone's mentions that, I'm just like, well, did you look at what you were eating? Because sometimes it's that you ate a lot of pasta and called it vegetarian. I'm like, vegetarian and vegan diets look very diverse. You can be like me, eat potatoes and Oreos and chips and salsa for your living and be incredibly unhealthy, or be eating, a healthy vegan or vegetarian diet, just like you can with an omnivore diet. So something to keep in mind for sure.
But like, since I came into veganism thinking about it, like I take a multivitamin. I take a B12 supplement. I look at like omega, I don't know, was it omega 3s? And those are the things that people kind of like say, hey, pay attention to. And so I have been doing that. So maybe like before when I was eating an omnivore diet, I had like vitamin deficiencies probably. I probably was screwing stuff up, but I just wasn't thinking, so I was more unhealthy. And like I also cut out soda right before I went vegan. Like a month before I went vegan, I stopped drinking like Coke, and like I stopped drinking like any added calories in my drinks, which I think really helped me. Because that was a bad habit I have of like drinking coffee with milk and like sugar in it, like, and then drinking sodas, a couple sodas a day. Unhealthy behaviors like that, I've just stopped, and I pivoted to like seltzer, and water. So, that might be part of why I lost so much weight as well, is like cutting out those things. And I don't know, it hasn't been that hard for me. Although I've been someone who's been able to do cold turkey things before. Like I used to smoke and I quit cold turkey. And so I might have people might have a different experience than me. I don't know.
Can't believe you just said cold turkey in front of me. It's definitely cold tofurkey. Oh my gosh.
God, that's not vegan.
Wow.
Cringe. Can we get some
He
DSA
said
cringes in the chat?
He's vegan and he just said cold turkey. Can you even
Can we
believe this?
still? Can we
Bad
see?
Bunny, back me up here. Where's Bad Bunny?
Animals are innocent. Don't be speciesist. If you're disloyal and we have a spat, I will not call you a rat. I respect you and rat. Don't use rat as an insult. And then I'm going to go ahead and call Pete a rat later.
Don't offend rats like this. Why must you do this, Mike? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Speaking of which, there was a vegan protest or something at a Bernie rally. I saw you tweet about it. I heard about this briefly as well. And you said you seemed a little unimpressed. From my understanding,
I don't know.
Like, yeah, just tell me your thoughts on it. I'd love what happened. Explain what happened and what are your thoughts?
I mean, this is probably Bernie Sanders' like biggest unalignment with my values, which is frankly, he's not vegan, and he spent a lot of his time supporting like the Vermont dairy industry. One of his biggest supporters early in his political career was the founders of Ben and Jerry. Like they were like his like richest supporters, right? And so like he wants to have he has a Green New Deal which talks about like decarbonizing agriculture as much as possible, but he's not actually advocating people go vegan or anything. So we still have consciousness raising to do, even and especially among leftists on this issue, right? And so it doesn't surprise me that if animal rights activism is the center of your life, which I respect, that someone will want to protest Bernie. But I gotta say, like, he's one of those people that just stands up to corporate influence in the government and agribusiness and Monsanto and those businesses and Cargill. He's opposed to them too. So from a harm reduction perspective, if you want to go against big agribusiness, Bernie Sanders is your guy. And I kind of feel like, man, I hate to police activism. It's like one of those cringe things that I really hate. It just didn't feel like now is not the time. I don't know. It's I'm sort of liking it. We've got to have a popular front around Bernie and protect Bernie, because he's actually plausibly going to take power, and I don't want us, to disrupt that path. And maybe I'm compromising in a way, and I'm not really sure, but it just didn't impress me. Like a couple people physically taking the mic from him in an aggressive way. I don't think that endears us to people that might listen to our arguments.
Interesting. So how do you think how do you think we would get that message across? Or I heard you say it's just not the time. So do we just...
white moderate talk. I know. It's cringe. I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, I heard that and I was like, oh, it's just not the time.
Well, no. And it's just like, ugh. And I hate to say it because like, all right, so let me give you my thinking and everybody can tear me apart. But
get ready, chat.
If there is no better alternative, what is the protest trying to achieve in reality? We have a few days until the Nevada caucuses, where Bernie Sanders is our best chance to get as much of our values as vegans in place and animal rights activists and environmentalists. Why aren't you going and protesting Pete or Biden or Steyer or Bloomberg, people who are actually in bed with these mega corporate, or for example, Klobuchar? You could get the same media push and bump while also helping the candidate who's closest to you. I just question the target, not the message. If that makes sense. This is and I hate doing this because whenever someone does it to me or another movement, I'm just like, fuck you. But I am really in the Bernie propaganda mode because I want him to get power.
Yeah, so it's interesting because
honest about my views.
No, because if you could almost use that argument with me, right? When later we're going to talk, not today, and I address this with my chat why and everything, but I want to talk to you about some of your comments regarding Pete. And you could easily say, well, Lumi, why don't you go talk to insert literally any way, like anyone who is blatantly a homophobe? And I would say, well, I want to build up and help have these conversations with the people closest to me, because I want to build up their understanding of the issue. And if I'm hoping Bernie gets in power, yeah, I want to support him, but I also want to critique him. So I'm going to be clear that I didn't even watch this. I didn't see how it went down. And I'm not necessarily supporting this particular activism. I think it's important to support diversity of activism while also be willing to critique and improve on it. So I'm just wondering, if you're someone who is a Bernie supporter, passionately so, how can you get that message across to him? Because a lot of activism becomes messy and imperfect, just trying to get that message to him. So how could we get that message to him? Do you have any ideas?
Yeah. Okay, so this is a great question. So, all right, there is in politics. So what is the purpose of activism? The purpose of activism is to push your elected officials to achieve a goal and to educate and inform the public and change people's values. So that's the goal of activism, right? And there are two elements of activism that must be married in order for us to succeed. Because that's what our goals are. Our goals are not just to go out there and be like, I'm a good person, I am vegan. No, it's to change minds and change policy, at least for me. And right now we are in an electoral campaign. So any activism must have an electoralism component. And so when you're in electoralism, you are making a choice of the lesser of all the evils. Who amongst the candidates has both a reasonable probability of attaining power and also is as close to as aligned to us as possible? And when you identify that candidate, here's what I believe you should do. And people are free to disagree. Is you get involved with their campaign, you get involved with their policy making apparatus, you talk to the people writing the law, the policies and the proposals in the campaign, and then you become indispensable to the campaign. You endorse the candidate, you campaign for the candidate, you make them carry your, like, for example, Bernie Sanders in the Sunrise Movement. Sunrise Movement endorsed Bernie Sanders, and now he posts a bunch about the Sunrise Movement. He's raising more people's consciousness of the Sunrise Movement and their policies and platform. And then they go out there and they canvass for him, they knock doors, and they get him in office. And then once he's in office, he knows, okay, the Sunrise Movement helped get me there. And then that's when you shift to activism mode, which is you hold him accountable. You show up at his office, you say, we got you there. And if you don't keep your promises, we're going to go out there and we're going to let our members know, we're going to let the public know, we're going to let the media know, we're going to protest you, and you need us for when you want to get reelected. And so you become indispensable to the campaign, and then when you're in electoralism mode, you get the person you've picked to win. And once you win, you leverage that to affect the policies. And remember, you were working with them the whole way during the campaign to get the policies written as closely to your views as possible. And then when they're in, then you push them further. That's the way I personally look at activism. So the mode that I'm in right now is get the person closest to me in and don't do anything that's going to swim against the grain and hurt him or her, or them. Because the goal here is to get power for us. Okay. So does that make sense? That was a little bit of a long answer because I do that sometimes.
I feel like I learned a few things about that, or about specifically ways we can influence our politicians, and that's helpful to me. So thank you.
Yeah, and that's my life. What the process I just talked to you about is my life, which is activism, and then electoralism, and then activism, and just keep flexing between the two, right? depending upon where we are in the cycle. And frankly, like, it's been working more and more and more. Like, I see the Democratic Party moving left. Like, this pattern,
Yeah.
and I see outside groups like DSA, Sunrise Movement, Progressive Change Campaign Committee, all these other groups, Greenpeace, they're all starting to coalesce around a candidate. And then when you have activists in your campaign, that's going to change your policies.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
I can't speak. I wish I could speak a little more to these activists or maybe against them, or could give my own critique. But frankly, I didn't watch it. So I just wanted to hear like your thoughts around it and the way you would have gone, because I knew you had some critiques of them. And to me, I just wanted to know, like, how do you get your voice heard to a politician? So that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, people power. And this is what's so exciting about Bernie, is what makes him unique is he says, not me, us. And what he means by that is, I'm going to build out all these outside organizations like labor unions and activist group and all these issues that I agree with, so that they have muscle. Because if he becomes president and he proposes a bunch of things, he's going to need them to go intimidate Congress. He's going to need them to show up at all those centrist Democrats who are like, oh, I don't know if Medicare for all is going to happen. Well, if you go to your office and there's 10,000 people in your district protesting, vote Medicare for all, you're going to get scared. And you might go, I don't want to lose my job. I better vote along with the president. And if we don't have that people power, then they're just going to sit back and take that lobbyist money. So, Bernie Sanders is really a once in a lifetime opportunity. I can't stress this enough to everybody. For someone who's been paying attention to politics since I was 7 years old, I can tell you that we do not get someone like Bernie Sanders often. It's like a once in a 100-year opportunity. Like, we got to jump all in right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely hear you on that. And I do eventually want to sit down with you and talk to you about canvassing and getting more involved with specifically Bernie, but also I have a few questions regarding local candidates as well.
That sounds like so much fun. I'm gonna do some more. I see a lot of people are thinking about starting to do more public activism on this platform, which is super duper exciting. So I'm planning on doing stuff in the next couple weeks. I'm probably going to go out to California for sure. I've been thinking about other trips as well, and just getting out there and taking people out with me. And I don't know if we'll be able to stream the canvassing per se, but doing more like IRL shit to make it more like less scary to people. And getting involved with local candidates, how to evaluate a candidate. I think that's the hardest thing, is if I can look at a campaign and tell you if they have a chance or not. I can tell you whether or not it's worth your time. But for normal people, there's just no good resources. I should probably do something. I should set up a resource, honestly.
That would be huge.
Yeah. So that people can, like, say there's two candidates, right? One is in a Republican plus 40 district. I don't care how good you are, you're not winning. And then there's one that's in a Republican plus 5 district. And they're, reasonably the same distance. I would like all our activists, frankly, to be over there in the R plus 5 and give that candidate a boost. And and if you just look for good progressive candidate, you might find yourself with someone who's good, but no chance. And they're not going to get supported by national progressive groups, and it's gonna feel disheartening to spend your year helping someone who at the beginning of the year we all knew didn't have a chance. So I'd like to get people to do activism that's effective.
That would be incredible. I know I want to sit down with you and a few people who do canvassing and have a conversation on getting out and getting involved, because I feel like just with how I'm trying to do with veganism, show people how to do it to make it less scary, less ambiguous. I think being able to do that and talk through some of the fears and concerns and questions people might have on canvassing could be really powerful. And not just canvassing, but getting involved in general. So thank you for considering doing that, I really
or
would.
running
I
for
would
office
benefit from
yourself,
that.
or running for
Yes.
office yourself. I could tell people how.
Yes.
I mean, like, as somebody who ran and who's helped many people get elected and lose. Let's just be real. I've done both. I can give people like resources to how to run and what you need to do to be taken seriously. And there's new stuff happening that is brand new. Like Grassroots Bunny is so much bigger than it was 5 years ago. And like, so you don't have to be rich anymore to run for office. But you do have to be organized.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that would be perfect. So we'll have to get together for that sometime. But I
Sure.
wanted to ask you one last question.
Sure.
If you were to give advice to someone going vegan, what would it be?
Take the plunge. Try it. And you know yourself the best. Are you someone who needs to ease into something, or do you like to plunge in with both feet? If you're going to ease into it, then make a plan and hold yourself accountable. If you're going to plunge, take it now. Take the plunge now, and you can do it. There's tons of resources. There's tons of, and don't be shy to reach out to other vegans and ask them for tips. It's not that big a deal. It's healthy, and I've enjoyed it. So give it a shot now. Why not?
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you chatting with me today. I know we've been
No
trying to
problem.
get together for a while, and I really enjoyed the conversation. But I'm going to pop over and chat with my chat a little bit, and I will catch you again soon, hopefully to talk about the Pete issue and maybe
Sure.
a panel on just getting involved in general. So,
Yeah, definitely. We should definitely talk about Pete, because I think the one, just so we can tease it for later. But the one thing is, like, I'm an activist and I want an activist president. And that's what I was trying to communicate, and I failed. And so when we talk about it more, I want to make sure that I'm not harming anybody who's wrestling with the issues that were touched on with Pete's history, and why in particular I find him so offensive. But I also want to do it in a way that's not harmful both to the movement. I don't want leftists to be tarred with this like homophobia smear, nor do I want to hurt people that are in marginalized groups.
Yeah.
So I think I didn't do a good job on either of those. So I'd be happy to talk to you about
Thank you. I'll look forward to that.
how important that is to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you for your time.
problem.
I'll really be looking forward to that. Maybe sometime next week or the following week when we both have time. All right.
All right, yeah, hit me up anytime.
Thank you. Have a good day.
And everybody, you too. Everybody check out Lumiru on twitch.tv/Lumiru. Let me give a shout out. Did I do something wrong? No, yeah, I did. I typoed. I'm an idiot. All right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the shout out, and
Yeah.
I'll
Follow.
catch you around. Thank you so much, Mike. Same. Can we get a shout out for Mike? I would really appreciate that if you could. He is one of our comrades. He has a lot of knowledge on electoral politics. I could learn a lot from him, I think, and I did learn a bit there that was really nice. I heard my housemate talking about this concept as well, about getting involved in local politics as a way to get involved with their platform and their policy making and have power there. I do think that I didn't want to go too hard on the activists, the vegan activists there, just because I didn't actually know what exactly they did. I didn't see that. But I do think that we need to have additional methods of activism that takes into account the amount of time and energy people have, because not every activist is going to have all the time to get involved with politics at that level. However, I think that considering that method of activism is really important. So I'm glad that we got to got to talk about that a bit. And I'm really looking forward to talking to him about getting involved in general.